The moment I saw her, something shifted inside me. It wasn't just about attraction or a fleeting spark. It felt like a force of nature, undeniable and magnetic, pulling me into a reality I didn't know I was waiting for. Her presence spoke louder than words. In that instant, it was as if my heart recognized her before my mind even had a chance to process what was happening. Time slowed down, and yet everything around me seemed to make sense for the first time. Her smile carried a weight of calm, like it had the power to disarm chaos and silence noise. The way she moved, the way her eyes reflected both kindness and strength, created an impression I couldn't escape. I wasn't searching, but I found her. I wasn't ready, but my heart was already captured. That's the paradox of love. It doesn't operate on schedules, calculations, or rational timelines. It arrives, uninvited, yet perfectly timed. From that first glance, my perspective on what truly matters began to change. It wasn't about accomplishments, success, or the endless chase for more. It was about finding someone who awakens the part of you that lies dormant, waiting for the right presence to ignite it. She became that catalyst, not because she tried, but because she simply existed in her truth. Her authenticity drew me in. Her spirit challenged me, and her essence grounded me. Every step after that moment has been guided by the memory of it. The way she unknowingly captured my heart set in motion a journey of connection, growth, and discovery. It's rare to encounter someone who doesn't just fit into your life, but transforms the very definition of it. She wasn't a passing chapter, she was the story I didn't know I was destined to write. Love, at its core, is not about possession, but about recognition. My heart recognized her. My soul anchored itself in hers. And even today, when I look back, I realize that first moment wasn't just the start of us, it was the defining shift that changed the trajectory of everything I thought love could be. Sometimes the most profound shifts in life happen in an instant, not through years of planning. It sounds counterintuitive because we are conditioned to think that all great outcomes require long preparation, structured paths, and meticulous strategy. Yet the truth is, life often operates outside that framework. The human mind seeks predictability, but the human heart thrives in unpredictability. When I say that the most profound shifts occur in an instant, I'm pointing to those moments that are not orchestrated, not mapped out, but still manage to completely alter our reality in a way that planning never could. Think about the way we're taught to build our lives. From an early age, we're given a roadmap. Go to school, get a degree, pursue a career, achieve financial stability, then perhaps find love. It's painted as if life is a series of checkboxes. But the most powerful turning points in life rarely follow that sequence. They appear suddenly, without warning, and they hit you with the clarity of lightning. One look, one conversation, one decision, one seemingly insignificant event can recalibrate everything you thought you knew about yourself, your future, and what you value. When I first saw her, that was the instant that redefined my trajectory. There was no planning for it. There was no checklist that said on this day, at this time, you will meet the person who will shift your reality. It happened. Because that's how life operates at its deepest level, through sudden breakthroughs, not gradual accumulation. The human heart doesn't move in straight lines, it moves in leaps. The profoundness of these moments lies not just in their suddenness, but in their irreversibility. Once they happen, there's no going back to the version of you that existed before. That's what makes them powerful. When you meet someone who captures your heart instantly, you can't return to indifference. That memory, that first impression, that undeniable connection, it imprints itself permanently. Even if you tried to dismiss it, you couldn't. It becomes part of you. And that's why a single instant can outshine years of careful preparation. Planning and strategy are essential for building systems, careers, and technologies. But when it comes to human connection, the rules are different. You can't engineer love. You can't time it like a launch window. It arrives on its own terms, and when it does, it humbles you. You realize how little control you actually have over the forces that truly shape your life. That humility isn't a weakness, it's a gift. It teaches you that not everything valuable comes from effort. Some of the most important things in life arrive unearned, unexpected, yet profoundly necessary. There's something extraordinary about the idea that your entire future can be rewritten in a matter of seconds. It forces you to rethink what progress actually means. Progress isn't always linear. It isn't always about stacking achievement upon achievement. Sometimes, progress is a sudden emotional or spiritual recognition that shifts your inner compass. That moment of recognition can carry more weight than years of structured effort. The instant I saw her, the axis of my world tilted, and everything else had to adjust to that new gravity. It's easy to underestimate the power of a single moment, because we live in a culture obsessed with scale and repetition. We believe that things must be earned through consistent effort, that results only matter if they come after long endurance. But what if the most meaningful results in life defy that logic? What if the most important connections don't require time to prove their worth, but simply require openness to recognize them? The first glance, the first smile, the first spark, these are enough to plant seeds that can grow into forests. Another reason these moments matter is that they awaken a part of you that was dormant. It's not just about meeting someone, it's about meeting yourself in the presence of that person. Before that instant, I didn't know my heart could react that way. I didn't know a simple look could create a sense of belonging, of recognition, of inevitability. That awakening is profound because it changes your relationship with yourself as much as it changes your relationship with the other person. You become more aware of your capacity to feel, to connect, to love. Consider how technological innovation works. Sometimes it's incremental, small updates, gradual improvements. But the breakthroughs, the paradigm shifts, often happen suddenly. A single discovery redefines the field. In human life, love operates in the same way. There are small interactions, daily routines, predictable flows, but then there are the breakthroughs. That single instant when you meet someone who changes everything is like a technological leap. It doesn't just add to your life, it revolutionizes it. And these profound shifts often carry a sense of inevitability. It's as if the universe conspired for that moment to happen. When you experience it, you feel like you're stepping into a path that was waiting for you all along. You didn't construct it, but somehow you recognize it. That recognition isn't logical, it's intuitive. It's the heart's way of telling you, this is where you were meant to be. And that's why the moment feels so powerful. It aligns you with a destiny that feels bigger than your own planning. People often underestimate intuition, especially in a world obsessed with data, numbers, and measurable results. But intuition is the bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, between logic and recognition. When I saw her, it wasn't my logical mind calculating compatibility, it was intuition firing like a supernova. That's why it happened in an instant. Intuition doesn't need time to process, it simply knows. Looking back, I realized that instant carried more truth than many years of deliberate choices I had made before. Because unlike those choices, this one wasn't filtered through fear, ambition, or external pressure. It was pure recognition. It was unfiltered clarity. That's what makes moments like this profound. They bypass all the noise and go straight to the essence of who you are and what you need. The beauty of it is that you can't manufacture it. You can prepare yourself for opportunities, you can build systems that increase probabilities, but you cannot engineer the exact moment when love arrives. That's why, when it happens, you remember it forever. The profoundness of that instant becomes the foundation on which everything else is built. Sometimes we believe greatness comes from effort alone, but the truth is, greatness is also about recognizing those rare moments and honoring them. The moment I saw her, I knew my life had shifted, even if I couldn't articulate it at the time. That's the power of an instant. It doesn't just pass, it defines. It doesn't just happen, it transforms. And once you experience it, you realize that the most profound changes don't come from planning, they come from presence, from being awake enough to see the significance of a single glance, a single heartbeat, a single moment that changes everything. I'll give you a hint before I give it to you on screen. Love operates outside of logic and schedules. It strikes when you least expect it, yet when you most need it. This truth unsettles people because it doesn't align with how we are trained to structure our lives. We build calendars, set deadlines, track milestones, and construct routines in the hope that everything important will fit neatly into the spaces we create. But love refuses to be confined by such frameworks. It is an uninvited guest that arrives at its own time, often disrupting the very order we try so hard to maintain. And yet, despite its unpredictable timing, it has a way of arriving precisely when the heart is ready, even if the mind is not. If love were logical, it would follow predictable rules. It would appear when the conditions are right, when both people are stable, secure, and prepared. It would synchronize with life's major milestones and avoid arriving during times of chaos or uncertainty. But that's not how it works. Love in its purest form shows up in unexpected places, sometimes when you're not even looking for it, sometimes when you believe you're not ready, and sometimes when it feels like the worst possible time. That unpredictability is not a flaw, it's a feature. It's what makes love extraordinary. When I first experienced that instant connection, it wasn't because I had calculated the odds or arranged my life in preparation. It was sudden, almost disruptive. I didn't plan to fall in love in that moment, yet it happened with such force that it bypassed all logic. That's the paradox. Love appears irrational on the surface, but when you step back, it often makes more sense than anything else. It doesn't obey human scheduling, but it aligns perfectly with the deeper rhythms of life. Part of the reason love operates outside logic is that it's rooted in dimensions of human experience that logic can't fully touch: intuition, emotion, spirit. Logic calculates based on patterns, probabilities, and prior knowledge. Love, however, thrives in recognition, in the unexplainable knowing that someone belongs in your life. That kind of recognition can't be computed. It can't be predicted. It arises in a way that feels like memory, as if you've known this person forever, even if you just met them. Logic would call that irrational, but the heart would call it truth. Consider how much effort people put into trying to plan love. There are dating apps, compatibility tests, and psychological profiles. We analyze shared interests, future goals, and timelines. While these tools can create opportunities, they can't manufacture that instant of recognition. Because love doesn't emerge from perfect alignment of data points, it emerges from a spark that transcends them. You could meet someone who checks every logical box but leaves your heart untouched. Then, in contrast, you could meet someone who defies all your expectations, who doesn't fit the plan and yet captures your heart instantly. That's when you realize love doesn't follow the scripts you've written for it. The beauty of love's unpredictable timing is that it often enters your life as a catalyst for transformation. You might feel unprepared, but perhaps that's exactly when you need it. Sometimes it takes love arriving at an inconvenient moment to wake you up, to remind you of what truly matters. If love only arrived when we felt perfectly ready, we might never experience it at all, because the truth is, most people never feel completely ready. There's always something more to achieve, another goal to chase, another fear to overcome. If we waited for logic to grant permission, love would pass us by. There's also a deeper wisdom in love's timing. It often arrives when you need connection the most. Even if you don't consciously realize it, the heart knows what the mind has yet to understand. At the moment I felt my heart captured, I wasn't thinking, this is the logical next step in my life. I was simply overwhelmed by the undeniable recognition that this was the person who mattered. The timing didn't make sense on paper, but it made perfect sense in reality. This unpredictability forces us to confront our illusions of control. We like to think we are the authors of every detail of our lives, but love reminds us that some of the most important chapters are written by forces beyond our control. And maybe that's why love feels so powerful. It connects us to something larger than ourselves. It strips away the illusion that we can manage and schedule every part of existence, and it humbles us with its raw spontaneity. Think about how breakthroughs happen in science or art. Many of them aren't the result of linear logic, but of sudden insight, flashes of inspiration that appear when least expected. A scientist struggles for years to solve a problem, then suddenly, while walking or daydreaming, the solution appears. That's how love works too. It doesn't follow a neat sequence. It interrupts, it surprises, and it reorients you in ways you couldn't have designed. There's also a kind of irony in how love seems to strike when we stop chasing it. People often search tirelessly, growing frustrated when it eludes them. Then, when they shift focus, when they stop pressing and simply live their lives, love suddenly arrives. This is because love isn't something that yields to pursuit. It reveals itself when the conditions of authenticity are present. You don't catch love, it catches you. And often, it waits until you're least expecting it, because that's when your guard is down, when you're most open to being moved. The lack of logic in love also explains its intensity. If love were entirely logical, it would be manageable, predictable, perhaps even safe, but it's precisely because it defies logic that it feels so powerful. When something arrives outside the boundaries of reason and timing, it shakes you to your core. It's an experience that refuses to be controlled, and that uncontrollability is what makes it transformative. And love's disregard for schedules also teaches us about presence. If you're too busy planning the future, you might miss the moment that matters most. That first glance, that first feeling, doesn't wait for your permission. It happens in real time, in the present. And if you're distracted by logic, you risk overlooking it. To recognize love when it strikes requires openness, awareness, and a willingness to embrace what doesn't fit the plan. Looking back, it's clear to me that the unexpectedness of love is part of its gift. If it came exactly when we demanded it, it would lose its magic. It would become another item on the calendar, another milestone to check off. But love refuses to be reduced to a task. It insists on being an event, a revelation, a disruption that transforms the way you see yourself and your future. That's why, despite its unpredictability, it always arrives at the right time. Not the time you planned, but the time you needed, even if you didn't realize it. So when I say love operates outside of logic and schedules, I'm not suggesting it's chaotic without purpose. I'm suggesting it follows a higher order, one that doesn't conform to human planning, but instead aligns with the deeper currents of life. Love's timing is rarely logical, but it's always meaningful. It knows when to appear. It knows when your heart is ready, even if your mind hasn't caught up. And when it does appear, it shows you that the most important parts of life cannot be controlled, only recognized and embraced. Authenticity has a magnetic power. It draws in what's real and lasting. In a world where so much is curated, filtered, and polished for display, encountering someone who is simply themselves can feel revolutionary. It's rare because people are often trained to present versions of themselves that they believe others will approve of. They hide their flaws, exaggerate their strengths, and perform roles that seem safer than honesty. But the moment you meet someone who isn't playing a role, who isn't striving to impress but simply existing in truth, you feel it immediately. It's a force that goes beyond attraction. It's recognition, and recognition is far stronger than performance. The power of authenticity lies in its ability to bypass defenses. When someone is authentic, they communicate directly to the heart rather than to the expectations we built in our minds. A smile feels genuine. A word feels uncalculated. A gesture feels unforced. And those little things matter far more than we admit. Inauthenticity, no matter how polished, eventually reveals itself. Authenticity, even if imperfect, sustains itself indefinitely. That's why it has magnetic power. It doesn't fade once the performance is over, because there was no performance to begin with. When I first felt my heart captured, it wasn't because of flawless presentation. It wasn't because everything lined up perfectly. It was because the person in front of me carried an energy that was undeniably real. There was no attempt to become something other than what she already was. And that lack of effort, paradoxically, carried more power than any amount of effort could. Authenticity radiates in a way that is effortless. It doesn't need convincing, it doesn't need to argue its worth, it simply is. Authenticity also creates trust instantly. Trust usually takes time to build, but when you encounter someone authentic, there's a shortcut. You don't have to second-guess motives or decode hidden agendas. You sense that what you see is what you get. That doesn't mean the person is perfect. In fact, their imperfections are often visible. But that visibility is what creates trust, because you know they're not hiding behind a mask. In relationships, trust is the foundation. Without it, everything collapses. Authenticity is the most direct path to it. Another reason authenticity is magnetic is that it validates your own truth. When you see someone living authentically, it gives you permission to do the same. Their openness invites yours. Their lack of pretense allows you to shed your own. That's why connections formed on authenticity feel deeper and freer. They're not bound by constant calculation or performance.